So my computer problems are finally fixed. It turned out that Windows 10 hated both my motherboard and my RAM. So when I tried to change out my motherboard, it was still angry at my RAM. And when I tried to change out the RAM, it still wasn't happy about the motherboard. Then when we figured that out and replaced both the motherboard and the RAM, I then proceeded to break the computer even worse than ever by trying to transfer files from my old drive to my new one. Because the new drive was offline when I did, and the two operating systems on the drives started fighting each other. So the new drive went completely corrupt. So I had about 4 days where even just clicking on the taskbar would 100% crash the computer. It was a nightmare, but one that is thankfully finally over. Now I can get back to work as normal on my videos without the massive headache that comes with trying to fix my computer every hour of every day. So let's talk about Longhaul. I'm actually amazed it took it this long for this to be the figure my patrons voted for. I was sure this would be the first one, and when it wasn't, I was sure it would be the second, right? But no, it's the third. Because of the fact that apparently the Tier 1 voters can vote infinitely for some reason, I changed how I'm doing the voting. People now comment their votes to me in response to the polls I put up, so I can confirm that none of the votes are getting miscounted. Unfortunately, only about half of everyone got their votes to me this time. And hilariously enough, when I tallied up the votes, every subsequent figure doubled in them. Scavenger was the outlier, once again getting completely ignored by the voters. But Scrapper got 3.5 votes, then Bone Crusher got 7, and then far and away the winner was Longhaul. Once I passed up Bone Crusher, I almost stopped counting them. But I just had this feeling that when all was said and done, Longhaul would have 14. And somehow, I was right about that. What are the odds of that happening? Man, this has got to be the most trivial preamble I've ever hit you guys with. So it's time to talk about the figure that I'm amazed was not the first figure people voted for. The famous one. The infamous one. It's time to talk about Longhaul. And before we get any further into the video, let's talk about the big fat fucking elephant in the room with this big fat fucking figure. This is the one that broke. Well, now it's one of the rest of them, because I'm fairly sure that by the time I'm done with this series of reviews, they will all have broken in some way. With Hook having likely the least of it since the crane just no longer has ratchets, and Mixmaster at least still holding together well enough after his head snapped off. But this was the one that so long ago just ruined this set in my eyes, because this is the one whose arm broke off. Twice. The story of what happened is pathetic. So I'm transforming this absolute piece of trash for the literal second time ever, just trying to get him into combined mode, when I go to hinge his arm in from the side. At which point, the housing around the mushroom peg failed right at the front. So all of this material right here just sheared away. Arm goes flopping onto the floor from the natural process of transforming it. I can't stress this enough. There was not a wrong tweak here. There was not too much force. I was not confused. I was doing the correct thing in the correct manner with little to no resistance off the part. And it broke. I just glued the front back down with plastic cement, and I hoped that was no problem. And then I sanded all the paint I could off the mushroom peg, because of course that part was painted, so hopefully it would put less strain on the newly weakened housing. At which point I went to move it, and not only did the entire housing shear off this time, not just the front, but so did the mushroom peg I just spent the last 20 minutes carefully sanding. It failed in 2 separate places at once, one of them uncompromised in the first place. That's just how shitty the plastic on this trash set is. First generation 3D printers laugh at this garbage. It makes the crap those things put out look like pure iron. What idiot chose this polymer? What moron approved it? What greedy jackass chose to charge such an insane price to put on it when it's such cheap trash? It can't even hold up to the rigors of existing. This stuff is brittle like figures in the final stages of gold plastic syndrome, and they charged for it like it's just made of pure gold. Look, I could drone on and on about this forever, but that would bore you. It's an unreasonable problem to have, but one that you could at least slightly ignore in combined mode. But this as a figure is ruined on its own. But was there a lot to ruin in the first place? Well, the look of this thing is kind of cool, but odd. More so than almost any other member of this team, his colors are extremely wrong. With the others, the breakup of them might be a bit off, or they'll have joints that weren't right, but here, his arms are just 100% wrong. Like his arms are supposed to be black, not purple. His thighs should be green, his knees red and not yellow, and he's missing details, like the cab next to his head or the smokestacks on the other side. Plus, he's got this huge plate behind his head that shouldn't be there. So those are problems with this figure's version of his general appearance. But there are more problems that aren't necessarily this figure's fault. The original Longhaul design was actually no heftier than any of the other Constructicons, but in the years since, every figure seems to have decided that he's one chunky monkey. This is not the chunkest of them all. That honor goes to Combiner Wars Longhaul. The only thing fatter than that, I think, in the whole history of Transformers was Brandis. But Longhaul is definitely rocking the bulkhead body type. They'd probably be friends, if they weren't trying to kill each other. He's also got this weird little gut overhang, but outside that, and the missing arm, this could have been solid. I mean, it also has a desperate lack of heels, but the look of this guy is kind of cool. He's plain, he's simple, he doesn't really have anything hanging off of him awkwardly, none of the kibble gets in the way, and he does look like something of a powerhouse. Though the classic Longhaul shins are obviously the point on him you'd shoot if he were a video game boss to get critical hits. They're just so skinny, and it almost looks like he has feet on top of his feet. Head is a bit of a problem though. Like, what's going on here? Longhaul has a silver head. Why have they painted it black? And it would otherwise mostly have been the right shape if it weren't for the absolute worst instance this line has of the head plate. Why were they addicted to this feature? Why did this need to be included? There was no option. It had to be on each figure. It's so vestigial here. It's tiny, it's thin. While the others were used to pick up the light for the light piping, this clearly isn't meant for that. They painted over the part that was the actual light catcher, and that was minuscule. So this guy's light piping probably sucked. But I have to question why, if they did this for him, why they didn't do it for the others. What does this plate add other than some weird neurotic line-wide gimmick? Like, we're Toyworld! Our thing is plates on the backs of the figures' heads! This is not negotiable! I know Longhaul is kind of actually supposed to have a plate as part of his head, but that would be better phrased as Longhaul's head is supposed to be part of a plate. It was massive. It was like 2/3 of his head. Everyone else who didn't originally have one got a big one. Longhaul, who's supposed to have the biggest one, got the one that I could probably snap off with my fingers. There is yet again nothing new to talk about with regards to the accessories, so this might be the first time I've ever just skipped this part. So articulation would be the best we've seen so far. Too bad about that. Head kind of sucks. It's way, way, way too tight. This will probably snap off if I use it too much. No, really, that just happened. On camera, while I'm talking about the head probably snapping off at some point, the fucking head snapped off. Fuck this thing. But it swivels and it looks up. Weirdly enough, it has literally no side to side, and it just doesn't feel right. Oh, would you look at that? While writing this script, guess what happened? Just take a wild guess. Go, go, go now! If you guessed, it fucking broke! Congratulations, you galaxy brain son of a bitch! You must have psychic powers because nothing could be this predictable! To be fair, it didn't break where I expected it to, and then it broke where I expected it to. Instead, somehow, the plate under the head separated from itself, and now it's just rattling around inside the chest being in the way of stuff. I don't even know why this part is here. Does it exist exclusively to piss me off? Arm actually gets a massive amount of up with no cheating. Elbow is way, way, way too tight and only pulls a 90. Same horrible hands as the rest. Waist is way, way, way too loose. Completely unimpeded hips. 90 knees, but you can do some very minor cheating for maximum knees. And feet that have a useless lack of heels, but incredibly high amounts of movement. These might be the most mobile feet I've ever covered. Too bad it's just pearls before swine with this broken boy. So yeah, this could have been well articulated, and it could have been one of the best looking figures of this set. But even if the arm didn't break, the feet would be frustrating as hell. As for transformations, I'm not actually going to bother showing you this going into combine mode this time. It's just the dump truck mode, but floppier. That's really all it is. It doesn't look like anything until it's all combined up. This is honestly the easiest and most fun of the transformations this set has to offer. The shoulders do some interesting stuff, and nothing is confusing or annoying, outside the fact that the head just kind of rotates back and does little to nothing to actually transform. Too bad this is Longhaul we're talking about here, and the end result is decent. Ignore the giant hole in the side from the missing arm. There are a few problems here, like the fact that this is actually massively cab heavy. Like, why would you need such a big engine when the load it can pull is so limited? And the back kind of sticks up high off the ground, plus this doesn't have the right side smokestack. But I might just be looking for problems because, you know, fuck this thing. I will say that it rolls really well, unlike any other figure from this set. It gets across the idea of being a dump truck quite well. But honestly, is it any wonder why I hate this set so much? It costs so much money, and every figure I've covered is broken at least one part during the course of making these videos. This is not a set I think you can recommend in good conscience. The only thing someone can try to get you to do in regards to these figures and remain moral is to tell you to stay the fuck away. They wouldn't even be particularly good if they didn't break. They are tons of money, they have limited posability, many of the transformations bad, the combined mode parts forms to hell and back, and while Devastator is one of those G1 characters that requires some degree of parts forming because the design as it was presented in the show was impossible, you can strive to minimize that as much as possible. Because otherwise you either have a bunch of figures and some giant useless parts sitting around, or you can commit to having it in combined mode forever because you don't want to have useless chunks of plastic larger than most figures just hanging out taking up your limited space. And when all's said and done, the combined mode has terrible posability, and it doesn't hold together 1/100th as much as the parts forming is good crowd wants you to believe. If you see someone thinking about picking this set up, do them a favor and warn them away from it. Save them the money that would be better spent on chalk, or food they hate, or buying animal turds. It is trash, unworthy of anyone's money. Save yourselves and save who you can from wasting even 1 cent of their hard-earned money on it. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.